Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to animate three different types of bouncing balls, and we're going to get into some weight and timing. So I'm going to go ahead and just begin the process. The first one I'll do will be a rubber animated bouncing ball. So I'm just going to go ahead and just get started here, and I'll go ahead and sort of just set keyframes here. And I'm going to have it sort of bounce from one side to the other. Now you'll see I get this straight line here, just from point A to point B. So in between here, I'm going to just give it a little bit of loft. And now I kind of get a much nicer little curve here. And I may even bring this back a little bit. And I'm going to have it bounce 2 or 3 times. And I'm starting on like every 5 frames, but I can actually always adjust that if I need to. So maybe this one loses a lot of trajectory. And I'm just going through my main key poses first. And now I'll do like 4 frames. And this one will be like 3. And this one will just bounce right off. Alright, so I'm going to set this to 40 frames, and I'm just pressing S to set keyframe. Oop, not 10, 40. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at it. And that's pretty good, I guess. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in my squash and stretch. And there we go. I'm actually going to rotate this as well. And I'm going to come back here, reset that frame, and here. Take a look at it. Okay. And so now I got to go to frame 15. Reset this one. And now I'm going to check my master control to see which frame this one goes on. And then here, we're going to bring this down. But this time I'm not going to make it squash as much. It's going to be a little less. And here, I won't have it stretch as much. And here, you'll see that I'm starting to get a lot of exaggeration happening here. And we'll rotate this back to 0. And I could really actually animate this from my side viewport, but I'll stick with my perspective for now. Okay. Here. Rotate this a bit. And then rotate this a bit. Put that one there. So I just middle mouse button clicked and dragged here, and now I'm going to delete this frame. And this is going to come down. Okay. So I got this ball losing momentum, and I'll have to do the last one right here. And I'm going to select my master control to see where that is going to. And here, and when it makes contact, let's bring this down. And this one's not going to squash as much, just a little bit. And this one will stretch just a little bit here. And then we're going to rotate this just a little bit. And then rotate this back. And then bring this up just a smidge. And I'm going to rotate this just a smidge. And I feel like I could get a little bit more squash on that. And here I'm going to animate these back to default 0. Alright, so let's just put it at 35 frames. And I'm going to play this back. And in case you haven't done this, you can right click on here and go play back speed and just click on real time. And now I'm going to play this back. And you'll see it sort of starts to fall a little bit more quickly. It's got a lot of little exaggeration on there. And let's just see what it looks like from the side. And maybe I meant the front. And select my master control. I'm going to take this and actually put it at 35. I just middle mouse button clicked and dragged it over. And now I'm going to delete it at frame. this one I'll delete, and this one I'll delete. Okay. And here it's going to be at 0, and here it'll also be at 0. Okay, so I'm going to play that back one more time. And that's what I've got. Okay, so I've added some angle to it as it's coming down because it's coming from this side. You really could essentially, you could have it be perfectly straight. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, but I think it just adds a little bit to it, gives it a little bit more flair, if you will. And that's my rubber bouncing ball. So you could submit a play blast. If I right click and do play blast of this, and then just browse to where you're going to save it to. And I'm going to save my play blast here. And play blast, and I have the settings: format AVI, quality 50, scale 50, frame padding 4, that's fine, and play blast. And I could also do it from my perspective viewport as well. But either or is totally fine. So I'm going to stop this video, and then I'm going to do a ping pong ball next. So this is my ping pong ball I animated, and I really only animated the master control. So you're going to notice here on frame 1, I have it just play through, and I'm just scrubbing through this. So I just set a keyframe on frame, 1, 5, kind of however I imagine this thing to bounce, and then at the end I have it do this sort of slight roll off. One of the things you can do, I'd like to show you. So you all know how to do this bouncing ball with the master control bouncing up and down, right? So actually the orient control here doesn't do, I thought it would, but it doesn't work the way I wanted it to. So I can actually delete those. But for right now I'm going to keep it on because I'm going to use it as a reference to sort of quickly get this thing going. I'll just get rid of it. Right click, I'm going to highlight those frames. I held shift when I did this, so I can hold shift, click, and drag, and now that'll highlight them all. And just while you're at it, while I'm showing you this, if I click and highlight all of these, I can, using these center arrows, I can actually shift my keyframes on this, and I can also use my outer arrows to stretch the animation out. So if I like the type of animation but I just want to adjust the timing, I can use these arrows to stretch my keyframes out. So you'll see that they're much further apart now. But I don't need them, so I'm going to right click and delete. So the other thing I want to show you, and this is a really good tool to have, or really good to know. So here on frame 40, you'll notice how these are solid red and these are more of like a pink keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and right here, I'm going to go ahead and highlight these and right click and do a, where is it, delete. I'm looking for delete. Delete selected, here it is. Delete selected. And now on my very last frame, I'm going to right click and do delete selected also, because I had already set these. And now you'll notice from frame, in fact all of them actually deleted, which is okay. So now what I'm gonna do on about, which is totally fine for this, what I'm gonna do is on my rotate here, this is gonna be, so right on this frame, I'm gonna set this to 0, and now I'm gonna set a keyframe. Oh, and I'm just gonna set, I undid that, I'm gonna just set a keyframe on my rotates. And I could just do my rotate Z, but and I'll do that by doing key selected. So now I just have animation on just my rotates. Now from here, on my very last frame, because it starts to roll off, I'm going to go ahead and just animate it just a little bit. I don't know, something like that. Oh, and let me just show you. I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit like so. I don't know. Try that first, and now I'm going to highlight my rotates and do key selected. So now it just it'll keep all the translate information, but I've gone ahead and keyed just my rotate, because if I didn't do it that way, it wouldn't rotate smoothly. If I started to rotate this a little bit and a little bit on each frame, it'll start to look a little weird. So it's a really good idea to go ahead and use that trick when necessary. And this is what I've got. So again, I didn't animate any of the down control, up control, or orient control. I only animated the master control. So for every single frame, I first did the up and down motion and side to side motion, which you can easily figure out. So I just, using my arrow tools, set my keyframe, adjusted it like this, tapped S on my keyboard, and then to set keyframe, and I repeated that process all the way through. So, and then I finally did the rotation here. And I did use this trick a little bit. I highlighted some frames and I shifted them around and whatnot in order to get, and I just undid it, to get my timing a little bit better. So you can try it in case you do need it. You know how to do it. But that's all I've got for you on this. I'm going to animate a hacky sack. So I've done the bouncing ball, bouncing across the screen. I did the ping pong ball, which bounces a lot and then sort of slowly rolls off a little bit. And then now I'm just going to do the hacky sack, which comes to basically a complete dead stop. So hacky sacks are made out of, there's usually like little beads or something in there, or there's other ones that have sand inside of them. So it depends on which one you're using, but either or, they're both going to pretty much do the same thing. So I'm just going to set the height on my master control to 10, and then I guess frame 10 is a pretty good one. It's just going to fall. And now I'm also just going to have it sort of set a keyframe here. Up here I'll set it to 0. Or actually I meant 1. Oh, there we go. Set. And then somewhere right here, I'm going to bring it up. So it gets a little trajectory, hits the ground, and then I'm going to sort of have it just, ooh. There we go. I don't know why I did that. I'm going to animate it just off to the side a little bit. And I'm going to rotate this just to sort of, no, I'm going to leave it like that actually. And on my frame 9, I'm going to have it not rotate at all, and it just kind of boom. That's all it does. Now, if I want to really get intricate here, Windows, Animation Editor, Windows, Animation Editors, the Graph Editor, and in here I've got a lot of things in here. So let's see. I'm going to dock it right here at the bottom of my screen, and here I'm going to have it just be linear tangents, and it's going to just, you'll notice if I undo it, right here it does a auto tangents, which kind of gives it a slight curve. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see, maybe I bring this up a little bit more, you'll see it has a slight subtle sort of curve down and then sort of curves back. But if I highlight this little keyframe here, right, and you'll notice I'm on Translate Y, it's highlighted right here. If I highlight this frame down here, it's going to highlight every frame that's on here, which is every frame but Translate Y. It's going to be the rest of them because they aren't doing anything. As you can see, they're all at 0, so it kind of color codes it for you. But I'm going to highlight my Translate Y, and just on my Translate Y, I'm going to do linear tangents, and basically that's just going to create it as a straight line. They have these other ones, spline tangents, clamped tangents, and these are all kind of flat tangents. These are all sort of step tangents. Step tangents would be, if I play it back, and this is actually, step tangents is really good for doing pose-to-pose animation, and then you can go ahead and sort of tweak the timing. But I'm going to turn off step tangents and just do linear, play it back, so it just falls straight down and it doesn't have that soft curve. So basically what it's doing when it does that soft curve is it whenever you do animate something, it kind of does this soft bend of animation, so it's gonna start out and slowly start to come down. At least in this example, my Translate Y. I guess it'd be easier if I show you here. So every time you create something, it's always going to be auto tangent until you go into your graph editor and change things. So here you'll notice it starts to first couple frames it starts to slowly fall, and then it starts to pick up a little bit momentum, and then when it comes down here, it's going to start to even more slowly start to land. So I don't want it to slowly start to land. I want it to be when you drop it, it just goes whoop straight down. So I'm going to do linear tangents, and now I'll play it back. And I'm going to give myself extra frames, like 20, just so you can see. And play. Oh, we'll go to my front and hit play. And I feel like this goes a little too much on the squash, maybe something like that. And you'll see now when it bounces, it comes back up and gets a little bit more shape to it. So I did add a little squash and stretch in here. And you see how it adds a lot more to the animation. So on frame 10, and then it just starts to whoop, get a little bit back to shape. But not entirely, because it's made of like beads and sand and stuff, I kind of lose some of that shape. But to give it a little more of an exaggerated animated feel, it's going to make contact, boom, right? It's going to squash at its most, and then it's going to stay on the ground, but it's going to sort of refresh with some of that air, if you know what I mean. I did find a reference in here. Let me see if I can show you really quickly. And I'm going to hope I can... Hacky sack. Alright. I'm going to hit play. And this one did a little roll. I'm not going to get that intricate into it. but you get the idea. So I'll leave this URL also as references. It goes through a ton of different types of, in this case, sports balls animating, or dropping and hitting the ground. And I'll include the ping pong ball as well. So anyway, that's all I've got for you in this video, and that's the graph editor. And I'm going to go ahead and click play, and you can see that it just whoop, does that little bounce. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, shoot me a message, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.